Even once you've learned to trade, put in all of that practice, and even begun to make consistent profits, there's still something you're missing if you want to achieve long-term success. So imagine this, you're a fund manager back in 1999. In fact, you're not just any old fund manager, you're actually the 23rd most successful fund manager on Wall Street. Yeah, I know, impressive. People are really impressed by your success. You're booking tables at the fanciest restaurants in Manhattan, admirers are eager to meet you, and your bonus check even makes your bank manager's jaw drop. Life is good. But then one day, you get the chance to meet Raven. Who's Raven? Raven the chimpanzee. Now, you might look at Raven and think, well, she's just a regular chimpanzee. You are the 23rd most successful money manager in the US. Why do you care about a silly chimp? She should be happy to meet you. There's plenty more chimps at the zoo where you just gave a huge donation to impress your partner. Well, think again, because Raven isn't just any old chimp. Raven is actually the 22nd most successful money manager in the US. Yes, that 6-year-old chimp outperforms you. And this is true. Back in 1999, really, Raven the chimp created her own index known as the Monkey Dex and achieved a 213% gain by throwing darts at a list of companies. She outperformed more than 6,000 professionals on Wall Street and achieved 4 times the performance of the Dow. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's obviously just random. It's no better than gambling. That was just luck. And obviously, I totally agree. I don't think there's anything other than luck if it's a monkey throwing a dart. But just as Burton Malkiel famously said, a blindfolded monkey throwing darts at a newspaper's financial pages could select a portfolio that would do just as well as one carefully selected by experts. And multiple studies on fund managers and traders in general have confirmed that not only is that true, but actually the majority of people underperform what a blindfolded monkey would achieve on average. And all of this serves as an excellent example of a very, very important point that I want you to keep in your mind forever. We can't rely on our short-term performance as being a gauge of how good we really are as a trader, both good or bad. And even if you're doing really well right now, you can't depend on that carrying on forever just from doing what you're doing. You can't let yourself get complacent. Because if your good results are just down to luck, just like Raven with her darts, your performance will eventually revert to the mean and you'll start hitting losses. But let's say the good results are because you have really built up some skill, it's still inevitable that you're going to hit a rough patch, and for most people that are in that category where they have built up skill, they'll still end up with the same outcome as a trader who's just succeeding based on random luck. And that's because to succeed over the long term at trading, you need an extra ingredient. You need second order competence. You see, most skill development is a linear process where you can develop competence and eventually become an expert. Like playing guitar. You get better and better until most people would consider you to be an expert and you can play most things. But the financial markets are constantly changing. The guitar's not constantly changing, the markets are. And so you can't just master one particular approach in one type of market and expect it to work the same way forever and ever. Of course, the principles or the method that you follow might stay largely the same, but you need to be able to adapt and optimize for different contexts. So rather than needing first order competence, where you're able to succeed at a particular thing just by doing that, you need second order competence, which is the ability to learn new skills and make adaptations so that you can keep succeeding even when things change. Like, think about when new technology changes an entire industry. Someone who has second order competence can relearn their skills so that they can still be relevant. But people who stay stuck with their old skill set, they're ancient history. They might have at one point in time been the most successful person in that industry, but when the context changes, if they don't adapt, they're left behind. And you know, I always like to give examples from sports as well. So think of someone like Cristiano Ronaldo. Most players, when they get to that age, they start losing their speed and their stamina, and so they just end up retiring because they can't do the things they used to do. But people like Ronaldo retrain for a different style of play, sometimes a completely different position that doesn't rely on those same abilities that they had before and that same style they had before, and instead depends on the things that they do still have. So that ability to retrain and adapt is second order competence. Now, in a moment, I'll give you an example from my own trading, something that happened recently and actually led to me having to adapt, but actually improving my trading results even though the markets had become more challenging. But before that, let me just give you 3 actionable tips that will help you start developing your second order competence. And it's all about broadening your horizons with your trading. So firstly, you need to try to experience as many different market types as you can. This will help you to pick up on the signs of when the context has changed and when you need to adapt, because you would have experienced different contexts, so you can pick up on those signs easier. It also means you can gain more experience about how to approach different market types, so you're better able to adapt in the first place. Now, one way to do this is to trade different assets from different asset classes, since they have different characteristics. You can trade them over different times of day. Another way is to just over time build your experience, because you're going to experience different periods in the market from one year to another. But if you want to fast track all of this, you can also make use of a simulator, a trading simulator. So you can go back in time to different moments in the markets in history and trade those moments instead. I'll link my recommended simulator in the description box if you want to check that out, or also watch this video up here where I explain the simulator in more detail. The second tip is to challenge yourself to trade in different ways for a significant amount of time. When I say a significant amount of time, I'm not talking about just one day or 1 week. Instead, think of it as if you're doing different work experience rotations, so work placements, spending 1 to 2 months using a particular style, then switching to another style for a couple of months, and so on. You can keep the same core principles that you follow, like the same overall method, but maybe 1 month you're trading really short-term intraday, scalping if you want. Another, you're maybe trading slightly longer term or swing trading. Another, you might be trading mainly based on fundamentals. Just dedicate yourself to that one style for that period of time and get as good as you can at it. This will give you experience with different approaches, so you're better equipped to deal with the changing markets because you have ways that you can adapt. You might even find that there's actually a different approach that you click with better than the one that you've already been using, and therefore that's going to make you a better trader overall. And the final tip is to never stop learning and understanding new things about the markets. You have to retain this curiosity and this passion for understanding as much as possible to improve your trading. Even if you're consistently profitable, keep trying to figure out new approaches that you can use and tools that might help you. And it might not even be something that you pick up from a trading lesson or something like that. It might be something that you pick up on from a completely different field altogether, and then you can think about how that could be adapted to benefit your trading. I've done that many times and it's really, really useful. And you never know really when you're going to need to make use of these things and rethink the way that you're approaching your trading. I had it happen to me just this year. You see, back when the pandemic started and the markets had that crazy volatility in 2020, I chose to step out of the markets during that time. I've been trading for well over a decade, and in fact this year marks 10 years that I've been full-time with my trading, but just like everyone else, I still hadn't experienced the markets reacting to a global pandemic. And since I trade steady state markets, not herd activity and huge volatility normally, I chose to sit it out. But the volatility went on for longer than I expected, and so I missed out on quite a few weeks of trading, and that was quite frustrating. So fast forward to this year, 2022, and I'd been much more active at the start of the year with my trading, executing trades multiple times a day. And so when the war broke out, the Ukraine war, when Russia invaded, and the markets had this huge uncertainty and lots of volatility, this time around I wasn't willing to stay on the sidelines. But since my system is better suited to steady state, I knew I had to adapt. Now, on Wednesday this week, I'll put together a much more detailed video for our mailing list about the changes that I made and all of that kind of thing. So if you want that video, click the link in the description box and join. It's free. But for now, I'll just give you a really brief overview of what I did. So after assessing the situation, I recognized that there were 2 changes I needed to make. The first was to my system. So you're only exposed to risk once you have a trade open. And the longer that trade is open, the longer you're exposed for. So since there was so much unpredictable risk, I really needed to make sure that I was in and out of trades very quickly. So the first part of my system that I needed to change was all about avoiding slow burn trades and only going for ones that are going to have an instant reaction. So I tightened up my stop loss and massively lowered my position size, so if the trade wasn't an instant reaction, I could be out straight away and I could take a few losses in a row. It wouldn't cause that much damage because the position size is so small. I also changed the risk management approach after the entry point to sort of cater for the huge volatility. And I'll explain that in more detail in the other video. So the next change was not about shifting my system, but actually adding an extra component to my system, since I needed an extra negative filter. I needed to know that a reaction at the level had actually happened and it wasn't going to be this slow burner with any sort of consolidation. I needed something instant. So I brought in something as a negative filter that would help me find that, and it was something I hadn't even used or even really thought about for many, many years from order flow and volume trading. And incorporating this in my system, knowing that that was the right thing to fill this gap of what I needed, allowed me to filter out more unviable trades and increase my success rate as a result. Now, as I mentioned, I'll give you a much more detailed breakdown about the changes I made and how I figured all of that out on Wednesday if you're on the mailing list, and that way people who always whinge about us having longer videos, can be spared the details, so they don't have to complain, although they still will. But as a result of following the 3 tips that I gave you earlier, trading different assets and different market types, trying different approaches all the time and learning different things and continuing to learn, I was able to make an adaptation in a very difficult market and perform much better than I had before. In fact, I'm going to be taking on some of those adaptations and using them in my trading even in steady state markets from now on, and I'll share more about that in the future. But I want you to share something with me for now. So in the comment section down below, let me know any successful adaptations that you've made, any pivots you've made with your trading, and whether you think you currently have second order competence, or if you just have first order competence and you need to put in the work now to make sure you don't end up getting stuck. And if you like this video, hit the like button so the YouTube gods know that this was a semi-decent one and they can then feed it on a plate to other traders for them to watch as well. So hit the like button and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.